Hello everyone, this is going to be a quick demonstration for my code for assignment 2 bash scripting. So firstly I'm going to begin with part 1, which is password manager scripts. So the part 1 was already done, which is generate passwords. So I'm gonna go directly to part 2, which is store password. So this takes 4 things: the password, the service, email address, and ID, and store this in our password file. So if I go ahead and go to my Linux machine here, I see 3 password files here. So the pass generator is our first one, which generates a random password. So if I go ahead and run that one first, it will give me a randomly generated password, and also like I can do things like this and give it a custom length and also a special character at the end. So this code was already done, so I'm gonna go ahead and look for the second one, which is our pass recorder. So this is responsible for um, creating a password field in our passwords file here. So if I go ahead and run it, it will give me error that service and username are required. So I need to provide a username and a service here. So I'll provide a service like Google and username James Smith. So it says generated password is this, and password is saved with ID this. And if I go ahead and do something like Facebook and name want to, and I'll give a password here is so it creates a new field of passwords with the password I gave it. So if I go and view the file here, I'll see here the username James Smith with the service Google, a randomly generated ID here, and a password which is randomly generated using our pass generator. And the second one is the password which we provided. Now if we look into the code for our pass recorder, so firstly we have a password file. So this is the location of the file which stores our password. So it's located in a assignment 2 directory. Now nextly we have a add password function. So this gonna add function add a password field to the passwords file there. So what this function is doing is, firstly it's checking if the password argument here is empty or not. So if this is empty, so it will refer back to the pass generator file, which is in the same folder as this one, using and so we can use a dot and this symbol here, and it will generate a random password and then echo out that random password here. Then if it will generate a unique ID. So this is the code for unique ID which we had in the assignment 2. So after that it will append ID, service, username provided by the users using different options, by optional password, and if it's not, it will randomly generate and append it to the password file. After using this, it will give a message that a password is saved with this particular ID. Now next one is the usage function. So this will just give the use to user that what this program can do. So dashes and then service, dash u and username, and then optional dash b for the password file. Then comes our next getops command. So this is our main command for our options. So we can use while getops here, and we have 3 options: s, u, and p. As the argument for the dashes would be our service, then for dash it would be our username, for dash b would be our password. So if we provide any other argument, any single line argument, so this will display a usage here, right? And then we're gonna check if the service or the username is empty. So if any of these two is empty, we're gonna print an error that both of them are required, and then we're gonna display a usage message here and exit the loop. Then we're gonna add the password, considering we have both service and username there. And if we have a password, we'll use that password, otherwise we'll randomly generate there, as we discussed in the add password field. So that will then store the password. And this end code is just checking if there's any option or argument provided when we are running our program. So if no option or argument is provided, it will display the error message and display the usage, how the program is run. So that's how it was. Now if I go ahead and look for a third password program, which is PassLister. So the usage for this one is simple. So -L to list all the stored password, and -S for specific service. So we're gonna do that. -L. So it will give me all my passwords. This one with EEE, Google, Discord, Google, Facebook, and yep. Now if let's suppose I need just for Facebook, so I'll do -S Facebook. It will give me just for Facebook. Now for Discord, it will give me for Discord. Now if we go ahead and check the code for our PassLister, so again we need to specify the location for our password file. Nextly, we have a list all password function here. So what this is doing is, first it will check our password file if this exists. So if it doesn't, we can simply say that no password is stored right now. So firstly we need to create a password there. Otherwise this will read that password file and display all the contents there, cause it displaying all the passwords. And next one is representing a particular service. So we're gonna achieve this by using list password by service function. So the argument, we will have one argument here, which is service, on which we want to filter out our passwords. So that we would represent by a local variable service name, and $1, we're gonna represent our parameter or the argument for this function. Nextly, we're gonna check samely as this one, that if the file exists, and if it does exist, we can use the grep command. So grep -I, so without it's gonna ignore the case, and -C will return the two instances above and below that particular line, so where it will find that particular service name in our password file. So it will generate four 5-line result. So considering how our things were stored in the password file, this was perfect to use -C and with 2 here. So that's what it does here. Next, for displaying usage, this is just simply telling the user how this program works. -L for all the passwords, and -S for a specific one. Next, we are using the getops command, and we just have two options here. L, then we're gonna list all password, call the list all password options, and then S for list password by service, and we're gonna provide parameter here, optarg. And if any of the other function except these two is provided, we're gonna use here this thing, so it will display usage. So the difference between the question mark and this is, this will if any of the thing is provided besides these two, this will be activated, but the question only activates when we provide a single line character, like any other thing like -M or something like that. So if that's for anything besides this. Now Lastly, we're gonna check if the arguments are equal to 0. If it doesn't provide any argument to this function, it will display the usage again. So it will tell us to provide other options, which could be -l or even -s. So that was for this one. Now let's go to part 2, and we're gonna check our task here. So firstly, we're gonna check task add. Now if I run this like that, it will provide it will ask me to give two options, -d for description of the task and -d to give a date. So if which is optional, so they could be options. So firstly I'm gonna give it a task, let's name it task 1, and I haven't provided date, and it says me task recorded successfully. So if I go ahead and look at the contents here, so I get a task file here. Now if I read the contents here, so I see a randomly generated ID and the name of like task description here, task 1, and the date, which is none. So if I provide a specific date here now again, let's say task 2 for this, and we're gonna name it, the date should be 17th November. Let's go for one for 19th. Now I want to highlight one point. If I enter some not valid, invalid date, something like this, it will give me error. Invalid date format, please use this format. So we have to use the correct one here. And also, like if I use for the 10th month, which is 1 month before from today, it will give me error that the due date cannot be before today. So for due date we need to be after today. So these are the two functions which I want to highlight. Now if I go ahead and look at the code in this one, so the first one is the location of the task file, which stores all of our tasks here. So it's located in assignment 2 on the name of task file. Nextly, it has a usage, so it has two functions, -d for the due date, and tells the user how to use it and provide date in this format. Nextly, we have a function called validate date. So this takes a date and checks whether the date is valid in this format, and if it's not before today. So this takes one argument, which is a due date, and then it also takes current date, which is it uses the date command here, and the plus capital Y, small m, and small d, so which corresponds to this format here. Now it will check if the date is valid, so it will go ahead and run date -d, which strings, which takes the date as a string and converts it into this format, plus y minus small m and g, and redirects both standard error and standard output to this file, dev null. And if it's not equal to that, we got a error. So if the format is not this one, so it will say invalid date format. Now nextly, it will check if the due date is not before today. So if the due date is less than the current date, it will generate this message here. So this thing plus %s here is generally like comparing them, helping in comparing, because it converted them into Unix timestamp, so we can compare them both based on this. So it will help us to know if the due date is before or after the current date. Nextly, we have our while get-ops loop. So in this case, we just have two options, -g and -d. So T is for our task description and D is for due date. So these both need argument here. So if any other option is provided, dash, so that would be an invalid option here. So we're gonna print the usage here. Now if this thing is used for, like, if the for any of our option argument is not provided, so this will echo out that that particular option needs a requirement. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And then it checks if the necessary argument for our thing, which was task description, is provided or not. If it's so, dash C is checking if the task description is empty or not. So if this is empty, we're gonna print the usage message, and if it's not, it will move further. Nextly, it will check if the due date is provided or not. So dash N means that if it's not empty, so if it's not empty, and but this is and here, and this doesn't run, the validate function doesn't like run successfully. So we're gonna present the usage again, because in this case the date is provided, but that's not valid date. So we can present the usage again, but this will not be presented because the validate date will already exit at this point, presenting this message. So that's for that one. And then we're gonna generate a unique ID again using the code we had in our notes. So after using that, we'll see here if we can check if the due date now is, if it's in correct format, then we're gonna check again. So if the due date is not empty, we're gonna echo that unique ID task description due date all in the task file. Otherwise we're gonna just like append with none in our task file. So that's what this is doing. This was the code for task creator. So our first function, adding a particular task. If I go ahead and look at our second one, which is task list. So when I run this, it says me to provide one of the following options: dash A for all tasks, dash W for which are due this week, dash D for the tasks which are due in next 3 weeks. So if I go and present dash A, it will present me all the tasks which are stored here. So none, 17th, 19th of November. Now if I go for week, I'll see just 2 tasks which are on 17th and 19th. Now for 3 days, we don't have any, because today's date is 13, so the maximum it could have was 16, so there was no task, so it doesn't display any specific task here. So that's how this task list works. So if I go ahead in the code for this one, again we need to specify the location for our task file. After that, we have our usage function displaying the user how to use this particular program. After that, we have one list all task functions, which is generally gonna read all our task files, and as it doesn't have any particular filter there, so it's just gonna read that file completely using cat. Now next is our list by week. So this is the filter where we filter by week. So what I have done here is I have used the for loop, and I've used variable I here. So for I in 0 to 6, so it will go run like 6 times, we can say. And what this will do is it will take a date, which is today, and it will plus the amount of days starting by 1. So suppose if today is 13, it will plus 1 day, 14, and then it will increase 1 15, 16, and till it reaches 6. That it will grab the date to check in our task file. So if it finds any of the date till we at the end of our week, it's gonna show us the result. So this, I found this logic to be quite simple compared to other logics which I saw. So I went through this one. Actually, I used the same thing for the last 3 days. So for that, I used from 0 to 2 instead of 0 to 6 here. So same thing. I'm gonna plus the I number of days starting with the 1. So it will go up to 3, and we'll see how many things we have due in the next 3 days. So it will also use grep and see if that date is there in a task file. So we'll see that particular task. Nextly, we have our getops command again. So we'll have 3 options here: A for all tasks, so this will call our list all task functions, W will call list week task options, and T will call list 3-day task options. And if we provide any other thing besides this, it's gonna echo invalid function dash optarg. So that's what this function's gonna do. Nextly, at last, we have checkers. So if this thing has any options or not. So if it doesn't provide any option, just run it. It's gonna prevent the usage as I did it at the first, and it just gave me a usage message to use either of these options. So that was this about this particular function. Now let's take a look at our last one, which is task delete. Now let me go ahead, and if I run it like this, it says me error, a task ID must be specified. So firstly, let me look at particular tasks. So these are the tasks we currently have right now. So if I want to delete, let's delete the first one. So copy this here, and if I run it, it will say task with the ID has been successfully removed. Now if I read that file, I'll see that that particular task is no longer here. So if I go ahead and check the code for my task delete, it will firstly provide the location for my task file, which is assignment to tasks. Then it will have a usage function as all of our programs. So it's just gonna tell the user that you need a dash I and the task ID here to be able to remove that particular ID from our file. So nextly, we're going to check if that particular file exists or not. So if that file doesn't exist, so exclamation mark doesn't exist, so we can echo that we can find that particular file, and we can ensure that that file exists, so we can go ahead and create a particular task before that. Nextly, we have our getops command while getops loop. So this just has dash I, so this will have a dash optarg because it needs an argument here. So if any other thing than this is provided, then that's going to be invalid option there. Otherwise, like if we provide something like if it doesn't provide argument here, then this will take precedence, and the option it will say the option dash I will need an argument here, and this is responsible for getops to check for our options and all that stuff. Actually, it will check if the task ID is provided or not. So it will check if it's empty, so then it will go ahead and echo out an error that the task ID must be specified here, and then also print the usage message here. Next, this is the main logic for deleting our tasks. So I'm gonna go ahead and explain it. So what I've done is I have named a file, updated file, and placed the value as updated name, updated task. So what I have done here is like I have used the grep. So the grep will search for task IDs and output the result which will not have this task ID, so anything besides this. So what we'll take this task ID which user has provided, and result output all the task ID which are not this, and we're gonna output them and redirect them in write them in our updated files, new file, so which is this one. Now after this we're gonna check using wc-shell, which will check the number of lines. So if the number of lines in our updated file and our task file both are same, so we cannot say that no task was found with that particular ID. So there was no task, either the task ID was wrong, or that could be the only problem there. Then after that we're gonna remove our file which we created, updated file, because it doesn't have any purpose right now, and we're gonna exit the program. Otherwise, if we do find the program, what we will do is we'll copy the updated file and name it to the task file, and then we're gonna remove our updated file there. So that will say, and it will echo out a message that the task ID with that particular ID has been successfully removed. So this would be pretty like logical for that ID. So we're gonna use copy to kind of rename and move the contents from our updated folder, so it will overwrite our earlier task file folder here, and will remove our updated file when its purpose has been served there. So lastly, again, we're going to check if any options are provided there. So if no options are provided, we're gonna we're gonna present the usage message again there. So I think that was it from me. So these were all the files which I made for this project, and those were the functionality I provided. So thanks for watching the video, and have a nice day.